Yes, wait a minute. What's going on in Nigeria right now in the political sphere? It's like something very new is going on. And I want everybody to pay attention to the historical, political maneuvering that is going on in our electoral process. 20, 30 years ago, elderly Nigerians were aware of the political infight between the late Bashorun MKO Abiola, a political giant, a businessman who was able to build his own empire, and he was also economically ambitious, politically ambitious, and the older General Obasanjo, a former military leader who ruled 3.5 years as a military president and came back to rule 1999 2 times as a civilian president. All of us are very familiar with the old war of these two political personalities who are also coincidentally from the same state, in the state in southwestern Nigeria. Right now, we are in the election year of 2019, and history is like playing itself back when we have General Obasanjo endorsing his own Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who happened to be a runmate with Mr. Abiola in 1993 election. Now, what is the big story? What is the big irony that we are looking at in this whole game? The irony is that for the first time, Abiola family are now saying we are endorsing General Muhammadu Buhari. Not because he declared June 12 a public holiday, not because he recognized Bashorun Abiola as the winner of June 12, but maybe because he's been able to inculcate the political ideals and ideology of the late Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola. On one side, we're also having Chief Obasanjo saying no, that Buhari must not come, and Obasanjo, who happens to rule for 8 years, who happens to be the direct beneficiary of the blood of MKO Abiola, who died in detention fighting for his mandate, for 8 years could not mention MKO or declare him winner of June 12 or even give him the necessary historical victory that he deserved. But look at it now, a Fulani man, Buhari, came and declared just towards the end of 2018 that MKO Abiola was a true hero and that June 12 is the preferred political holiday. Today, after several days of chasing, several weeks of chasing, we are lucky to meet one of the scions of the MKO Abiola dynasty, somebody who has been in the news in recent times, though very, very hard to get, but thank God we are meeting him. The man, the polyglot, the businessman, the politician, the strategist, in his name, Mr. Jamiu Abiodun Abiola, who happens to be, or let me say, historically now, is one of the campaign managers of the Buhari campaign organization. We are here in the heart of Ikeja to meet him, and in a few hours you will hear why and what is it all about, especially this rivalry, and why is Abiola supporting Buhari and Obasanjo denouncing Buhari and supporting Atiku. Join me as I engage Alhaji Abdul-Jamiu Abiodun Abiola, the Shetima Rashid of Borno Empire. Sir, good afternoon, and I'm very, very privileged and honored that we're meeting you today. This is another very eminent chance that you're giving us for the second time in the last 6 months. We've been trying to reach out to you in the last 2 months, 3 months, but your aides kept saying that you are busy. You're either out of the country or in Abuja doing 1 or 2 things. Let me ask you, what actually has engaged you in the last 2 months? Some people are saying maybe it's because of the campaign that is very closer. Some people are saying you are doing some other stuff in Abuja. What has really engaged Alhaji Abdul-Jamiu Abiodun Abiola in the last couple of months, sir?
Well, in the last couple of months, I've been more focused on the issue of the campaign, the presidential campaign. I first started by joining the Buhari support organization, headed directly by Dr. Mahmoud Abubakar and with the overall leadership of Colonel Ahmed Ali, because I strongly believe in President Muhammad Buhari. And after joining that Buhari support organization, I was opportune to have been appointed as part of the Women and Youth Presidential Campaign Team, headed by distinguished mother of the country, Dr. Aisha Buhari, with the same purpose as the Buhari support organization, which is to make it easier for Nigerians to see the glaring and the obvious reasons why our President Muhammad Buhari deserves a second term.
Let me ask you this question. How do you feel being a member of the presidential campaign team? And I mean, you being a very busy person, a polyglot, and someone that's so engaged most of the time. How do you feel being, and also being a son of a political giant in the president of late Bashorun, MKO Abiola? How do you feel being in that campaign team?
I'm very, very honored to be in that team because politics has played a very, very, very crucial role in my life. I mean, I personally, I've lost a lot because of politics. Both my parents, as you know, were killed, and my father and my mother were actively involved in politics. And their own version of politics was how to touch the lives of people, the downtrodden, the masses. This is what my mother, Alhaji Abdul-Jamiu Abiola, stood for. This is what my father, Moshood, Abiola, stood for. So I'm very honored to be part of this because President Muhammad Buhari is the only person I've seen in recent times, in terms of presidential level, who cares about the masses.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Cares about the masses?
I'm sure, and the reason why I'm sure is because if somebody lies for like a day or two, the person cannot lie for a lifetime. If you look at his history, the way this man has been operating, even during that time of General Abacha's regime, when everybody was complaining about bad governance, he was the only ray of hope. And most of his programs, even then as the chairman of PTF,
the Petroleum
Trust Fund, he focused on the masses. He went into areas that people never thought was possible. Rural areas, in terms of roads. They went into hospitals. They went into providing medications. They did a lot of things. If he wasn't part of that government, the monies that were spent on those projects probably have been squandered or looted. So he has always been playing the role of a messiah. So I'm honored to be part of the team that will try to ensure that he comes back to power.
I want to ask you this question. Are you sure that you are not being biased because the president recognized your father as a political icon and recognized the day your father struggled to liberate Nigeria, that's June 12th, as the political holiday of Nigeria? Are you sure you're not biased because of those political goodies, as it were, that the president gave to your family?
Well, those political goodies, as you put it, might have an effect, but at the end of the day, they cannot have the overall effect in terms of like the effect of those political goodies, as you put it, just made it easier for me to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know that the issue of my father has been a very, 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 very long issue in terms of him getting recognition. It's because of my father and in an effort to get my father to actually get political recognition was why, I wrote this book for him. And this was, I started writing this book before President Buhari became president of Nigeria.
Yeah.
And in this book, I even wrote about how President Buhari has done a fantastic job. In this book, I wrote about how he has done a fantastic job.
So you look at the historical perspective,
of even in PTF, and how even when he was head of state, this was even before he became president that I started writing this book. So I've always believed in him. But obviously, him naming June 12th Democracy Day has played a very, very positive role as well in terms of encouraging me to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Let
me go this way. You see, I watched, there was this thing that's going on, viral on NTA, whereby you called to come and talk about the goodness of change. And you were able to say that the president has improved our power generation drive from 4,000 megawatts to 7,000 megawatts. And you said a lot of things that the president represents your father in terms of reaching out to the people in the lowest rung. But if you look at the Nigerian economy, look at what people are saying now, it appears that the poverty level is high. Are you really sure that what you said is really what is in tandem with reality in present day political setting in Nigeria, especially after 4 years of President Muhammad Buhari?
That's a very good question. A lot of times, there's an Arabic saying that when there's a crisis, we hope that it gets worse so it can get easier. In most cases, even when you have malaria, you go to the hospital, they give you treatment. When you come back home, you even sometimes feel worse before you went to the hospital. Then after like a day or two, the malaria disappears. when a problem is going to be solved, it usually looks that way because human nature, you know, and the devil, or for whatever reason, that's always been the way it is. When the president took over the country, a lot of things were wrong, and most of the problems that Nigerians were facing, they didn't even know the extent because a lot of propaganda, a lot of fake information, a lot of dishonest disclosures. But the president's own style of government is transparency. He is not going to like borrow money from the bank so that people can feel as if there's money in the country. He let people know this is where we are. We're at rock bottom. So now let's now move up. And that is the system that we have. Instead of him focusing on how, you know, he can make people, the elites, wealthy, and how to be putting ads in newspapers so that journalists can say wonderful things about him, he just put all the money towards infrastructure. So that Nigerians themselves, being who they are, hardworking, industrious, they can work their way out of poverty. He wants to give Nigerians a foundation. That's why he focused on the roads. That's why he focused on the electricity generation. That's why he focused on giving money to farmers. That's why he focused on feeding primary school students so that they can actually be in an environment in which they can learn more and they can actually prosper more. All of this money is put in all these areas could have been put into areas that people would say, well, there's not that much poverty, but it's putting it where it counts. And when everything starts coming to light, people will now know that, wow, this man is a visionary. This man saw the future. It's like you make an investment for a better future. That is why when you say things are tough.
Yeah, but things are really tough.
When you say things are tough, it's like you, for example.
Yes,
I mean, you are married, I'm sure.
Yes, of course.
I mean, can you imagine if you have an income of 200,000 a month and you take a mortgage from a bank and your income now drops to 120,000 and you still have to pay the mortgage? And will you be able to do what you are doing for your wife before?
I don't think so, sir.
Exactly. Nigeria was earning $80-90 per barrel from oil. All of a sudden, it dropped to $37, which means that the price dropped. Then the production, thanks to the Avengers, also dropped as well when General Buhari became the president in 2015. So we had a price drop and production drop. So that is what actually made it very difficult for the poverty level, you know, to be kept in check. So now, you as a husband, if you had 200,000, you're now earning 120,000, definitely your family members are going to feel it. But General Buhari was not discouraged. He still sat down and he still did what the former administration didn't do. He got all the contractors to go back to site. Thanks to people like Chief Babatunde Fashola, they are fixing all the roads. They are doing major road construction in all states, to the point that they are actually hiring thousands and thousands of people, and they are doing things that in the very near future people will see the results. So I want people to understand that the hardship that has been faced is due to the fact that the price of oil dropped and due to the fact that the government was saddled with the heavy burden of bailing out states. You know, at that point almost 24 states were almost bankrupt. The government had to bail out. All of this is coming from the treasury. So the hardship is as a result of the unfortunate circumstances that I just explained.
Now, let's go to the president. Of course, I got your analysis that for everything to be okay, from an Islamic perspective, that things should go a bit hard and things will be okay. But what do you see to people that have lost, people that are losing their jobs? I mean, and a whole lot of youth that are complaining that there is no work. In fact, there is no work in the public environment and all that. That the economy is now worse. Even the price of product has skyrocketed to like double fold and all that. Is it part of it?
No, all of that is not true because number one, inflation has dropped from 17 to 11%. Then the federal government, in terms of the youth that you mentioned that have lost their job, they have a new program, the Empower program. And that Empower program is really doing a lot of wonders for youth. And apart from that, federal government is focusing on how they can get youth to not just be employees to become employers. They want to empower youth.
Entrepreneur.
You know that for the first time in Nigerian history, there's a development bank. For the first time, yes, they've gotten their license from Central Bank of Nigeria.
I'm not fully
aware of that. And also, there's actually a new perspective now. The federal government is trying to come up with an entrepreneurial bank, a bank that is going to be used solely for entrepreneurs.
Are you sure?
I'm sure of this. The Vice President is sure of this. And apart from that, this next coming 4 years, the federal government has so many things they want to do. For example, they want to actually create opportunities for like 500,000 youths I mean, they want, we know that the vice president went to Silicon Valley in America, and he met with a lot of tech companies there. So they want to do a partnership in which they're going to like help, it's going to come up with something that they call the Innovation Fund.
Innovation Fund?
Yes, where they're going to help the youths, especially those that are gifted in terms of like, tech industry. So there are a lot of things that are coming.
And are you sure this
is going to happen?
Youth-oriented?
It's very youth-oriented. The vice president was there in Silicon Valley, and like he met with so many of these top CEOs, and because of that now they even provide free Wi-Fi for a lot of areas. Now people are getting free Wi-Fi. People in very impoverished communities, they have access to information, they have access to training, so they know what they're doing. The government have a good plan, a good strategy.
No, looking at it, there's another thing that a lot of people are saying that maybe Mr. President is old, he's not a good candidate at this time, we need a young person to come and take over. Of course, the parameters are there to measure in terms of proficiency and all that. But people are saying, no, the man is too old, the man is aged and all that. They are not too good side. We have two old men, two Fulani men. But what are you saying to those that are asking for the young generation? You are a member of the young generation. Are you still saying that President Buhari has something to offer this generation, or they should be the ones sitting on that hot seat in 2019?
In terms of like the old or the young generation, what we should be concerned about is for the job to be done.
The job to be done.
We don't really care if the person that is doing the job is 20 years old or 70 years old or 80 years old. What you are saying happened in Malaysia, People are saying the same thing, that, they want somebody that is young. Eventually, they got the younger leadership they were looking for. Then now what now happened? They still went back and they brought back the prime minister that caused the biggest transformation in that country. They brought him back. The man is in his 90s and he's doing a good job and he's stabilizing the country. Me personally, I don't see President Buhari different from that man, because number one, President Buhari is somebody that if he had stayed in power in 1984, Nigeria by now would have been another Malaysia. So we missed the opportunity by his removal. Actually took Nigeria back. The removal of General Buhari, then when he and General Diagmo were there, they would have actually stabilized the country. And we're just lucky that God loves Nigeria so much that God made it possible for him to come back. And now that he has come back, you will see what I'm talking about. In another 2 years from now, a lot of people that are cynical and they are skeptic, they will be like, wow, we were so wrong. Because this man, it was not just his own competence, also ordained. This, it takes another dimension entirely. This man was ordained to do what he's doing, and it's going to, by the grace of God, complete his assignment.
Are you not afraid? Because there's an analysis now online that if Mr. Obasanjo can shoot down the regime of President Goodluck Jonathan with just 2 letters, now he has written General Buhari almost 2 to 3 letters, and one of the letters has 16 pages. And recently you also saw the abracadabra when the Nigerian people say former Vice President Atiku Abubakar cannot tell America that he's going to be arrested. And just one Thursday morning or Thursday evening, we heard that the former Vice President is in America, and a lot of people are saying, Mr. Obasanjo that is behind the diplomatic credence and all that. Are you not afraid that this letter is going to shoot down President Muhammadu Buhari, and there's going to be a problem for him, especially in the international community?
Well, the truth of the matter is that, as I told you before, President Muhammadu Buhari is not just a president like other presidents. At the end of the day, I believe in God. I believe that President Muhammadu Buhari, was ordained to save this country, and I've seen so many signs of that. There's no way, I've never ever come out to support any presidential candidate to this, but I know that my parents, they fought for this democracy, they died for this democracy, and I don't think that it will be very, if I see somebody that is going to do what they are going to do, as a son, I should go ahead and support that person. If MKO Abiola was alive today and he was president of Nigeria, his number one priority would have been the masses of this country. Then he was saying farewell to poverty. He was talking about taxing the rich. A lot of things he was doing. He wanted to transfer wealth from the rich to the poor. And that's what I see this government doing. That's why people say that things are tough, things are rough. It's because no contracts like that before. They're now looking at how they can get to the people at the very bottom. Because a lot of people in Nigeria suffering, and they've always been suffering. But if not for this president, who would have remembered them? You know, who would have remembered them? You know, people that are even IDPs. Do you know some of them get 5,000 naira a month? You might think it's a small amount of money, but some people 5,000 naira is equivalent of 5 million naira to you. These are people that are there. Do you think that all this can be happening and God will let it go away? Or do you also think that the president of Nigeria today, will, after doing all the work he has done, will now leave? Somebody else will now come, and when things are good, that person will now say he's the one that did it. God is not somebody that's going to like leave things halfway. President Buhari was there before, and he was removed. And Nigeria went not just back, Nigeria flew back. So now he's come back. I don't think God is going to go halfway. So,
I want to ask you another question because it's very important that we nail the issues now. As it were, there's another critic, and the critic, especially coming from President Obasanjo too, and majority of Nigeria, that the trader money that Vice President Jamiu Abiola is sharing around is an inducement fund to buy the mind and the heart of the candidate for the 2019 election, and that is by the side that the money is also ridiculous. How you will be giving 10,000 to traders? That is nothing to write home about. Do you have any different opinion against this critique of 10,000 naira that the Vice President is sharing at some very few weeks and months to the election?
You see, everything that government is doing is something that has been projected, budgeted, and it goes through the right channels. And once it has gone through the right channels, it's legal. And that money that these people are collecting, it is actually their entitlement. They are Nigerians. Nigeria sells oil. No, these people have never seen anything from federal government. If the money is coming today, it's coming tomorrow, it's coming yesterday, as long as it's coming, that's all we should be caring about. The reason why some people will say the money is too small is because these people are all the way up there, you know. To them, they believe everybody is somewhere up there, you know. They have never really put themselves in the minds of the masses. That 10,000 naira that you are seeing, it makes a whole difference, especially when somebody is investing it in products like akara, all this. That 10,000 naira, it acts like a multiplier effect. You know, in the span of 1 month, that 10,000 naira can keep flying and it can keep reproducing. So people shouldn't look at it as 10,000. They should look at the multiplier effect of the 10,000 and the virtuous cycle, as opposed to the vicious cycle of not giving that 10,000. And when you add that money, you multiply by the number of people, you could have gone to somebody else's account, which is what was been done before. That's why you see some people having $3 million, they keep it in the soccer way. If that $3 million is 10,000 naira times 500, so you can imagine the difference. I'd rather have 10,000 naira going to the people that are going to put it in proper use, as opposed to having $3 million, somebody keeping it in the gutter and soccer way, because they're scared of the fact that
in the burial ground. Let me go to the. I'm very familiar. I'm sure you had the video leak out. Let me call it video voice leak of the Minister of Transport, the President of Mr. Amici, where he said, "Oh, under Buhari, Nigerians are crying, journalists are crying, businessmen are crying, and all that." As a businessman, are you sure everybody's crying really?
First of all, that video, you know, people saw the video from like a part of the video, it was doctored. Because if you want to see something, you start from the beginning. What he was saying was that the country is being reformed, and because of that, people that were corrupt, from the politicians, they are all crying. He's not saying that they're just crying. But the problem with things like this is that people don't look at the beginning of something. They just wake up and then look at the middle, and they now start judging. What he was trying to say is that because of the fact that the country is going through a reform and through an overhaul, people are crying because they're not used to the easy way they were getting before. That's why he went on to say that this country is difficult to fix and it's, I think it's even impossible. So I think people should actually look for that original video. I have seen the original video, so it's not what people are saying it is.
But really, in your heart of hearts, you think Mr. Buhari is fixing this country? In your heart of hearts,
he's fixing the country, and the reason why I know he's fixing the country is because, as I told you before, you know that's why I like using parables like my father used to. I said if you have 200,000 naira income and you have a mortgage and you're already committed to that mortgage, then all of a sudden your income has become 120,000. That there's no way you can actually keep doing what you are doing before. You're going to have to make some adjustments. Now, the question I want to ask Nigerians is that how many of us have actually adjusted anything in ourselves? When we talk about democracy in America, that we copied democracy from. We copied their model, their House of Assembly, their Senate, their presidential system, 2 terms and all that. American democracy is called a participatory democracy. What that means is that people participate. But over here in Nigeria, we find it difficult to participate. What we actually do is we run down. There's no way you can expect the best from a government when you're running the government down. People know that the government is earning less. People know that the government is doing more. But when it comes to playing devil's advocate, there's no point. Nobody wins. So let's be honest with ourselves. This man is fixing the country based on what he can do and based on what he found on the ground. This is the fact. That's why 4,000 to 7,000 megawatts is a fact. That's why inflation has dropped from 17 to 11%. It's a fact. That's why Nigeria is actually not importing fertilizer. It's a fact. That is why Nigeria has a strategic alliance with Morocco to build a gas pipeline that is going to create so many advantages for people in the very near future. That's also a fact. That is why 300,000 farmers have benefited from the Anchor borrowing program. It's a fact. That's why 9.2 million children have been fed every day. It's a fact. That's why 100,000 farmers, 100,000 cooks have been employed on this same feeding program initiated by this federal government. That's also a fact. So if you can't see the facts and you want to see the distortions, then good luck to Nigeria.
I'm sorry to ask you again that why are all these things mentioned? Why are they not in the public scene? It appears that it is when somebody stumbles on one that is so, I didn't know this was going on. We are not seeing them in the media. They are not properly, what can I call it, propagated. They are not publicized and all that. So what do you think the president is supposed to do to have been able to let those things come to the glare so that people will not say, he's doing nothing, that he's just aging and all that?
Well, that some people have spoken about this and people are giving different reasons for that. Some say that, if you don't give people money, they will not publish what you are saying. Some other people say that the media is owned by members of the opposition and there's vested interest. I personally, I don't believe in conspiracy theory, but because of what you just asked, I have to really I have to do a rethink. Because there might actually be a conspiracy theory. Because when somebody is doing all these good things and people don't want to see it. But then again, the president has always been like that. Whatever he does, people will always assume this is a man that is cook for more than 20 years he's a Christian, but yet they want to say he's an Islamist. Even recently I read something about how somebody wants to Islamize Nigeria. Somebody that is vice president, he was acting president several times with full powers, and the vice president is a Christian. Somebody that CBN governor, the most powerful position in terms of monetary policy, and is also independent of the presidency, is also a Christian. He never tried for 1 second to remove him. Somebody that when he became president, for the first time, we had a Minister of State for Petroleum and a GMD occupied. This position was occupied by one person, and the person happens to be a Christian. And we all know that Nigeria's economy actually depends on oil more than anything else. So all of these are signs that this man is not a radical. Even the tax collector, the Chief Fowler, is also a Christian as well. So but then of course some people will still wake up tomorrow and say the president wants to Islamize Nigeria. But I know definitely the truth will come out one day, and the truth will set us free.
Nepotism is another thing that everybody is talking about. It's most of the sectors in the economy, in the country, especially the security sector, dominated by people from one part of the country, especially from the north. Recently, we saw what happened in the judiciary over the fate of former Chief Justice Onohe, who is, of course, involved in the corruption scandal. But by the time he was asked to step out, the next man was also a northerner and all that.
The next man was a northerner by accident. You know that when it comes to it, the judiciary is the most senior person that takes over. That's always been the case. Doesn't have anything to do with presidency, doesn't have anything to do with the issue of, had it been the former chief judge, I just gone to the trial. Okay, I have this money in my account, I forgot to declare it, this is how I got the money from. All of this, the trial would have been going on, it would not have come up to that. But when, I don't know, when I was told that the meeting of the NJC was suspended indefinitely and all of that, then now created the lawlessness. And of course, there was a ruling that prompted the president to act that way. So everything has been due process. Remember before, in the time of another president, people have been impeached with like 5 members were impeaching. Then they were impeaching people in the night. At 5 o'clock in the morning. So at the end of the day, you see, so that is lawlessness. This is always due process. And like by the grace of God, whatever it is that the president is doing, people will go to appreciate him more because this is the first time we're having this kind of leadership.
Before we go back to that, you discovered that Mr. Atiku Abubakar has always been a recurring political decimal. He's almost the oldest, one of the oldest politicians that has been vying for the position for a long time. He campaigned and even contested with your father in 1993, and I learned he was the third in that election. And eventually some power brokers, I think General Babangida was pressuring your dad to pick him as the number 2 to run for the 1993 election. Unfortunately, the governors forum and the governors settled down for Babagana Kingiwe. Now, the same Atiku is back now, and President Obasanjo is endorsing him. With the fact that the same President Obasanjo told us in his book that Atiku is corrupt and that handing over a country to him is like handing over a bank to a robber and all that. But suddenly, Mr. Obasanjo, Chief Obasanjo said he has forgiven Vice President Atiku Abubakar. What do you see to this scenario? And do you see him as a formidable opponent that can beat your principal in the year 2019? General Buhari. Do you see President Atiku, Vice President Atiku Abubakar chasing Buhari out of power in this coming election, which is just 2 weeks from now?
Well, if General Buhari had not done the things that I said he has done, then definitely any formidable candidate can chase him out of power. But if he has actually done the things I said he has done, which I know he has done, then I don't believe that anybody can chase him out of power. Because you see, the way this world is, you reap what you sow. I don't personally believe that General Buhari's fate will be like the fate of my father. My father, he won an election, he fought for his election, he won an election, he fought for the election, and when it was time, somebody else reaped what he sowed. I don't think General Buhari was going to work so hard, despite his age, sleepless nights, coming up with a strategy for this country, and for somebody else to now come and now be the beneficiary of what I don't think God is an unjust God. I'm going to leave it from that angle. I'm not going to look at it from, I'm not going to answer, I'm not going to address what Chief Olusegun Obasanjo said about him in his book and how he was able to make his U-turn, because that's between him and the former vice president. But I'll just look at it from the fact that if somebody has done well, the person is going to be allowed to continue. Had it been General Buhari hadn't done what I said he has done, you will not see me here talking about him. Because you see, the blood of my parents to me is more valuable than anything else in this world. I will not sacrifice their name or their image for anything. Not for any gold, not for any silver. The fact that I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm saying what I'm saying, is because I know and I've verified the things that the government said that they've done, and I know that they've done what they've done, and knowing that God is a just God, I don't believe that anybody can remove General Buhari from that position.
So, in a nutshell, you're not seeing Atiku Abubakar as a threat?
I don't see anybody as a threat. You know that the presidential election is being contested by a lot of people. There's Mogalu, there's so even I don't know, Obi Kwesile has left, but she's still there according to INEC. Anyway, whatever the case may be, I don't see anybody as a threat to General Muhammad Buhari.
Now, if General Obasanjo invites you as a son of the soil, you are from the same Ogun State, and from the same Abeokuta, and he calls you and he says, "My son, please take off from endorsing or supporting Buhari. Let us work together to elevate Atiku Abubakar." Are you going to take that instruction from him as a father? Are you going to answer him?
You see, that question is not even going to happen because number one, I saw him recently, a picture of him and his son. His own son too has actually endorsed General Buhari, and they were laughing together. They were laughing together. I don't think he's the kind of person that would even call me and tell me that, whatever the case may be, that question is not. I'm not going to even answer that question. It's not going to happen.
Now, looking at the economy again, a lot of people are complaining about a weak naira. What do you see to that? And do you think there's a proper plan to make the naira strong? And as we are talking now, we are aware that there's no light. The power situation in the country, that's why the 7,000, the discos are not still helping matters. What do you think is going to happen, especially to the discos that seems to be dragging that reform behind, and the issue of the naira and some other economic indices that will spur on the economy and make our country a great country economically?
Well, in terms of the issue of the naira, initially it was very volatile, but now it's stabilized. And it's going to actually get better because the federal government has invested a lot in terms of solid minerals. And you know that when we start exporting, it's going to actually strengthen the naira. In terms of the light, they're generating more light, but there's a new program that the federal government has initiated, which is transmission and distribution expansion. They want to actually improve the transmission and the distribution, which is, thank God, to lawyer turned energy technocrat, Chief Olusegun, very hardworking man. He has done a lot in terms of making sure that that part of that power sector is regularized, and is doing his best to make sure that things improve. Part of the problem that the government had initially was the fact that the pricing, what Nigerians are willing to pay is not comparable to, it's not very low compared to what people are willing to invest. Because we wanted to bring in investment, but it's very difficult for people to invest in the power sector if they cannot make their money back. And Nigerians are not willing to actually make the payments that they're meant to make. Because I would have preferred for us to have a higher price and a more stable supply. But there was a court ruling, and that court ruling stopped government from increasing the price of power. Which, if the government had actually increased it by then, I think they would have done much more than what they're doing now. But as I said, there's a transmission and distribution expansion program on the way, and there's also that's in terms of the power, and also there is a target to increase the export of solid minerals, which is also helping matters as well. And it's going to help in terms of the dollar that you are mentioning about the exchange rate stability, striking the exchange rate.
That public funds should not be used to campaign for him, and that no politician should touch public funds. And he promised to run his campaign based on issues and based on, what can I call it, sense of probity and all that. Where do you think the APC is getting the fund to run the campaigns around the country, and how do you think they're making that money?
Well, if you really look at the campaign, you find out that the campaign is not so capital intensive. So it's not as if there's actually a need to actually go the extra mile to get these funds. People like us that are part of the presidential campaign team, when we travel on our own expense. Most of us are not just talking, we're actually acting, we're actually putting our money where our mouth is. Some of us want to travel, we buy our tickets, because at the end of the day, this is the first time in Nigerian history where an incumbent president will refuse to spend one kobo from the treasury. That's never been done before, and if the president is not given a chance to do another 4 more years, it will never be done again. Because we have to cement this ideology. We have to let people understand that it's not business as usual, and it's not just talk, it's about acting accordingly. The president has access to all the wealth in this country, and he could have actually made this campaign much easier for himself and for everybody else. But as far as it's concerned, he cannot use the monies that belongs to Nigerians to win their trust. To him, it's hypocritical. So he is focusing on how we can all contribute in our own. And of course, farmers have been very helpful. A lot of farmers have benefited from this government, so they've contributed a lot of money towards these campaigns.
So you think the farmers have been doing enough to support the return of Mr. President?
They've been doing enough, and also individuals too. We also do our own bit. When we are doing when we are traveling, we spend our own money. We sometimes we make T-shirts. We do things. I mean, if everybody can just put a little, then there will be no need for one person putting a lot. You see, it's all about changing the ideology. Bringing in values. When they bring, if we get it right, and we get the right people in the right places. Like look at the head of customs, Colonel Ahmed Ali. Colonel Ahmed Ali is somebody that has access to so much money because he's the head of customs. But this is a man that cannot, even if he wants to buy a pen or a biro, he will even use his own money. He rather use his own money. When you get people like him, people like Dr. Mahmoud Abubakar, people like he is the head chairman of UBEC. These are the people that form the PSO, the Buhari Support Organization. And when you have people like that, there's no way that the country can go wrong. So the president is trying to put the right people in the right places because they have the right ideas.
So how much is that campaign costing you? You as a member of the youth and women wing, how much is it costing you as a businessman?
I don't look at it as like a businessman or as a politician. I look at it as like we are doing this to service the country. So we're not writing all these things down and this is not normal experience. When they say come, we're having a meeting, we go. We're moving to Nasarawa, we move. Okay, how many cars do we have? Okay, you know what? Let's even get a bus. Let's even buy petrol. Everybody's doing it. Somebody can do it today, another person will do it tomorrow. It's a team, you know, and that's how Nigeria is supposed to be, because the masses have suffered enough. We have to put all the monies available towards infrastructure, even if it means people should put their hands in their pocket. What does it cost? It doesn't cost anything.
A lot of people also they are sympathizers of the late Chief MKO Abiola, who believe that his family has been neglected in the last 25 years. And until 2018, when Mr. President decided to honor that family, he gave the breadwinner the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic title, declared him the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria posthumously, and declared June 12 the real Democracy Day and the real national holiday. Do you see other goodies coming with the second return of Mr. Buhari, especially for the member of the family of Chief MKO Abiola, especially regarding some of the people believe that the government is owing him and all that, and some other things that should be veiled to you? Do you see anything good coming to the family?
Yes, I believe that things will only get better. And even not even, because at the end of the day, if my father had become president of this country, what would have happened? By 2001, his regime would have ended. His second term, if he had done a second term.
Yep.
Then when people talk about him, they will say former president of Nigeria. But for now, he's the only person in this whole country who has benefited from the fact that a day dedicated for a victory. There's nobody in Nigeria that there's a public holiday signifying the victory. You know, he has gotten the honor that nobody else in this country has ever gotten.
You mean Chief Moshood Abiola?
Now, June 12th now is going to be celebrated every year, you know, by the grace of God, to the end of time. So, that is a big thing. When people talk about what the president did for my father, what he did was, he didn't just give him a gift, he gave him an everlasting gift. So that in itself is a very, very monumental, you know, and, you know, definitely we'll be optimistic that other things will follow. But whatever the case may be, this in itself is a very, very big thing. Thank God for that, and I thank God for him.
I want to quickly go back to the issue of power and energy, because you said the government didn't increase the bills at that time, that there's a plan ahead for them. But you look at the discos now, they've increased the bill, and some of them are not even ready to install prepaid meter in the different homes across Nigeria. I read in the paper 2, 3, 4 days ago that there is a bill in the house that is trying to criminalize estimated billing. But sir, what do you think the government, Mr. Buhari, is going to do in the second coming, especially to ensure that there is critical solution to the issue of the fraudulent ways the discos take money from consumers, I mean power consumers in Nigeria? Do you think there's going to be something that is going to be drastic to put the corruption free in check?
Well, you know that the Minister of Power and Housing and Works, Chief Olusegun has been having a number of discussions with the owners of the discos, and he's been trying to like make them understand that the federal government policy is people oriented and it should favor the people. They have been having a series of meetings, and they, of course, as you said, there have been a lot of problems. But nonetheless, you know, as I said earlier, the government has a transmission, you know, expansion program and distribution expansion program, and the government is actually going to go along with that program, along with more discussions with the discos. You know, these are private companies, you know, and everything has to be done according to the rule of law. So definitely, you know, the government is going to tackle everything. But the most important thing I know for a fact is that between now and like 1 year from now, the additional power that has been generated will actually be distributed more effortlessly. That's good news for Nigeria.
At a very good price.
At a very good price, because at the end of the day, you know, I mean, it has to be a good price. Because the last thing the government wants is to increase the hardship faced by the people.
Let me ask you this. You've written some books that are very prophetic, and I noticed because I was going through Glendora the other day in the bookshop, and I saw some of your books, and luckily some of those books are here. You wrote Prisoner of Conscience. I mean, Prisoner of Conscience, meaning that for a long time, the conscience of those who held the image of MKO Abiola, who had his esteem down, will have been ruffled. Then you wrote Realistic Hopes, meaning that the hope of achieving the greatness of your father will also be realistic in the long run. Then also you wrote The Stolen Presidency, and eventually you also wrote The President Who Never Ruled. So why were these themes and these what can I call it, topics, why were they so prophetic and coincidence, and it's almost becoming a real life, not just a fairy tale, a real life tale?
You know, these books, apart from the one I wrote, The President Who Never Ruled and The Stolen Presidency, these are the only two books that are non-fiction. The other books were fiction. Like, for example, The Prisoner of Conscience has to do with a Muslim that wanted to marry a Christian woman, and how, you know, the woman became a prisoner of her conscience because of the fact that she ran away with a Muslim and her father died of a heart attack because of what she had done. So it had nothing to do with MKO Abiola. So that's the prisoner of conscience, you know. And the realistic hope had to do with how a poor man wanted to marry the daughter of the richest man in Egypt, and how people told him that his hopes were not realistic, and how he was able to, like, you know, despite the fact that he was born in poverty, how he was able to break in and was able to actually achieve what he wanted to achieve. So these books, they didn't have anything to do with Chief MKO Abiola, but at the same time, it might seem like that now because, you know, the prisoner of conscience, might actually tally with what he went through. And of course, this was the first one I wrote. I first wrote it in Arabic,
okay,
and I now wrote it in English. And the same thing too, Arabic and English. Then of course, President Who Never Ruled, the same as well. So the books have always been towards instilling moral values. Because you see, when there's no values and there's no foundation, then there's no progress and there's no prosperity. So whatever I write, you know, I've been writing books for the past 6 years now. I always write to touch the conscience of people. Because if you're going to make any progress in your life, you're going to have to first start by having the right values. When you have the right values, you can now move forward. So that's what the books were about. It was, as I said, fiction, fiction, non-fiction, non-fiction.
But looking at right values now, do you think the man you are campaigning for now has that right value in terms of conscience, in terms of sincerity of purpose, and in terms of strength of character? A lot of people say he's a nepotic, he's a man of nepotism, he's a religious bigot, and he's not too very sincere. It's not, you don't see when he's coming, he's not in charge. His wife will say that the presidency is being run by two odd men, that the man is not in charge. So do you think the man has the right value for Nigeria to take him serious for a second time?
The man has the right values, because when people talk about nepotism, then they have to, like, give us statistics, you know. At the end of the day, you know, if there are 100 people in the government and 2 people are related to you, how can you call that nepotism? And I just told you before, the Minister of Labour, which is a very, very important ministry, I'm sure you agree.
Yes,
is from the East. I mean, there's no nepotism, because a Fulani man cannot have an Igbo man as a relative. The Minister of Trade and Investment is from the East. There's no nepotism. The Minister of Science and Technology is from the East. The CBN governor is from, you know, these are all the key ministries. When you talk about, like, Nigeria, talk about, like, the most important ministries. And the issue of, like, ministers of states, most of them are from the north, where the president comes from. So if it was nepotism, the full ministers would have been the one from the north, and the ministers of states would have been the one from the east. So the issue of nepotism has already been defeated. And when they even came up with the list of their appointees, we now even discovered that most appointees by the federal government are from the southwest. So, I mean, so is he also a Yoruba man as well? Is that where the nepotism is coming from? When we talk about human values, we talk about people that were in key positions. A former minister of petroleum, shouldn't he, according to Nigerian standard, have a house in Switzerland? People used to see him when he's pushing his car to buy petrol, you know, in Kaduna. People know
the same President Buhari?
People know how the man, you know, suffered. People know who he is. If he was a former governor in 2 states, he was the minister of petroleum, then Nigeria's eyes have even opened. Then 70 kobo was $1. If he just did one deal, he would have made enough money to secure not just his own future, but the future of his grandchildren. So what more do we ask for if we're looking for values? What more do we ask for? So when people say all these things, you know, I think the people that are saying it are just a very, very limited number of people, and they're saying it based on baseless facts. And that's my own submission.
But talking about values, do you have role models, and why your role models?
Well, I have role models. My key role model is my mother, Alhaji Abdul-Jamiu Abiola, because she was a wife among wives. You know, anyway, when you see a woman saying that she wants to fight and die for her husband, it's usually maybe she's the only wife or something like that. But this man had a lot of other wives, and she still went ahead and she sacrificed herself. Some said she wanted to be first lady, she wanted to become powerful. At the end of the day, when she was fighting against Abacha, people in the government were offering to give her money or to give her all. She could have sold this man out, and she refused. And at the end of the day, she was killed. You know, so she is my number one role model. My father is my role model because, you know, he could have actually, you know, when the election was annulled, he could have collected his money back and doubled, and said he spent double, collected his money and walked away. But he said to himself that this world has a bigger meaning. Let me fight and let me die, you know, in the process of trying to make things work. Then that was in the past, and they've passed away, and their souls rest in peace. Currently, my role model, I'm part of the Buhari support organization. And because of the fact that General Buhari is somebody that, you know, I look up to in terms of the fact that he's not materialistic, and he's just like my parents, he sees a deeper meaning in life. So General Buhari is also a role model to me, and also people like Colonel Ahmed Ali, who happens to be like, just like the president. I mean, they're like more or less like Siamese twins, same personality. People like Dr. Mahmoud Abubakar, people like Alhaji Daura, so many other people like that. Because these are people that they are here for a purpose. They don't want to just come and go. They want to come and leave something that will stay. And I think it's important for us to support them and to emulate them.
Now, let me ask you this critical question. Before your dad died, what kind of presidency did you tell him that he wanted to run? And what was your last discussion with him like? Have an insight into the kind of things he wanted to do for Nigeria? Because a lot of people felt if he had become the president, maybe the military would have kicked him out, sacked him. They would not be able to have implemented some of those ideology he preferred. But meeting him one-on-one, what did he tell you?
Before he was arrested, he came to America. He was in the St. Regis Hotel, and I happened to have been with him, and we were together all night from like 10 in the night, because I was still in New York University, so he was in Manhattan. We were together from 10 in the night till like 3 in the morning, and he kept talking about what you just asked me about. He was talking about the fact that he wants to declare himself as president, and he said that once he does that, Nigerians will support him. And I asked him that, what if you get killed? And he told me that, no, he can't get killed because people are going to support him. He was trying to be optimistic, you know, he was not looking at the dangers. And he now mentioned the fact that a lot of people in Nigeria, they just keep building castles, they keep, you know, amassing wealth, and like he's going to come and he's going to put an end to all of that. So he was more or less somebody that was a rich man, but his mentality and his attitude was that of a poor man. He was a rich man, but he hated rich people in terms of the fact that he hated their greed. And he kept saying it all the time, that we have enough for everybody's need, but we don't have enough for a few people's greed. that was what he used to say. We have enough for everybody's need, but we don't have enough for a few people's greed. So he was always looking at how he would touch the lives of people. So eventually, it wasn't so difficult for him to give his life away. When I came back to Nigeria in 1995, the year before my mother was killed, we were lucky enough to see him. When I saw him, the people that were there, that were taking care of him, the policemen, they felt bad. They asked me that, talk to this man, let him give up this mandate. So I was now telling him that, like, you should take it easy, you should come out. He now said, willing to face the firing squad. Once he said that, the policemen looked down, they were feeling bad, they were like, this man has spoiled it, because some of our Abacha's people were there, they were watching, and they went to call the guy and telling that this man hasn't learned his lesson, you know. So, yes, he might have died, but that was the list of his priorities. At that point, he was already gone. You know?
Are you aware he was kept on underground cell in Abuja?
I don't think it was kept on there. I think it was kept in a house, but then the stories keep shifting, you know. So it's only God that knows exactly what happened to him. But the good thing is that he died for a good reason. And the good thing is that we have a president that has come, and that president is actually going to do everything they wanted to do. But if Nigerians just give him the chance, and I'm sure they will, and they will.